Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call the meeting of the Economic Development, Tourism and Event Management special meeting to order. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest?
None.
No. I'm going to get an approval of the agenda.
Moved.
Second, good. I guess I'm just looking around. I know Councillor Terry McLeod had a previous engagement today, so he wasn't able to make this meeting. And has anyone heard from Councillor Tweel?
Yes, I received an email and
Okay.
I'm not attending.
Okay, thank you. So we still have quorum, so we have an approval of our agenda. I need approval of our minutes from April 21st.
Moved.
Moved and seconded. Okay, any business arising from those minutes?
None.
All right, so we're going to move right into the one topic we're here to discuss today and turn it to staff, and that is a Sir John A. Macdonald statue update. Laurel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're just going to start out with just a bit of a refresher on the timeline of how we have gotten here. So the committee is very aware, in June of last year, Council passed a resolution that the statue of Sir John A. Macdonald was going to stay in place, but that the city would consult with Indigenous organizations in the city to work toward adding or amending the plaque adjacent to the statue to offer a more balanced telling of Sir John A.'s not only history in the development of Canada, but the impact that his policies have to this day on Indigenous populations in Canada. So in July, we held an initial meeting with Olney and the Mi'kmaq Confederacy. It was a great meeting. We came away and Olney ultimately said they were just waiting for further direction from their chiefs on how they would be engaging with the city moving forward. What ultimately came out of that was in October of last year, City Council received a letter from Olney detailing amendments that could be made to the statue, including a plaque, but in addition to some other recommendations that would allow for the installation to be used as an educational opportunity, but also would remove the photo opportunity aspect, the selfie aspect that really they didn't feel was appropriate for the nature of what the entire installation should be at the end of the day. So those recommendations were that we would install an additional statue into the installation. They indicated it could be an Indigenous elder, perhaps an Indigenous child, and that we would dedicate that statue to the Indigenous peoples of Canada and highlight their resiliency and contribution to Canadian society. They indicated that the revision to the statue should take place in a way that that photo opportunity is removed. So either the empty space on the bench would be filled with another statue or would be sealed off if the statue was to be placed elsewhere. They indicated that signage or plaquing should be added that detailed a more balanced telling of his full history, his full legacy, and that if the artist that was engaged to do this work was not Indigenous, that artist agreed to work with a Mi'kmaq artist in a consultant capacity and offer some guidance on what that additional statue could look like. And at the time in October, they had recommended that the completion of that work should be done by this spring. So obviously, we know the timeline will need to be adjusted if we're to move forward with those recommendations. They also had requested that while the work is underway, if the bench was to remain in place, that we do seal off that photo opportunity and indicate what is actually going on with the piece of art. So following receipt of that letter, we had the opportunity to meet with the Native Council of Prince Edward Island. And they had conducted a survey of their members and offered us some input on what the outcomes of that survey had been. And at the time, we presented the 5 recommendations that we had recently received, and they were in agreement that if the statue was to remain in place as council wished for it to stay, that those recommendations were acceptable and they were a good compromise and a good path forward, but they did highlight that they didn't feel an Indigenous child would be appropriate. They felt we should go in the direction of an elder. So then on November 23rd, Chair, you will recall you brought forward a motion to this committee to place some signage in that empty space on the bench indicating that a conversation was taking place. We didn't at that time know what the outcome was going to be, but we wanted to try to remove that photo opportunity, and the committee at the time felt that that was outside of the scope of the resolution we were given to work with. So that matter was deferred. And then at the January meeting of council, council did reiterate to this committee that we were given a resolution to work within and that we should work within the terms of that, which was rewriting that plaque, revising the plaque to include a more balanced telling. So I'm going to hand it over to Doug.
So between January and March of this year, the mayor's office sent a few correspondences inviting Indigenous representative organizations and academics to participate in the drafting of this new plaque content. So during this time frame, NCPI confirmed its participation in the drafting of the new plaque. Oneway and Attawood Assembly of Councils expressed their disappointment in the length of time that had elapsed since they shared their 5 recommendations. In a public letter, the Assembly of Councils indicated that they did not feel that a plaque revision was sufficient and that they would not participate in the rewriting. They were clear that they remain open to future engagement within the letter, but that the issues involving the statue, as noted in the recommendations, must be addressed. So the academics we corresponded with also declined participation. So they recommended that no one non-Indigenous scholar or some combination of settler Canadian scholars should be attempting to draft this plaque without the involvement of multiple Indigenous individuals, experts, or scholars. So the members of academia hoped that this could be done collaboratively with all the stakeholders involved to ensure that the text fairly represents Sir John A. Macdonald's legacy from a variety of perspectives. So since this was not possible due to the Attawood Assembly of Councils and Oneway not participating in the rewriting of the plaque, the academics we reached out to made it clear that they would not move forward on the drafting of this plaque without the collaboration and input of numerous Indigenous voices at the table. So, as it stands, there is currently no path forward to advance the recommendations of the June 25th, 2020 resolution of the Council.
So what staff are recommending at this time is that the June 25th resolution of council be amended to include the 5 recommendations that were provided in the letter of October 14th of last year. So just to reiterate, the addition of another statue to the installation dedicated to the Indigenous peoples of Canada, to remove that photo opportunity that currently exists in the empty area on the bench, to install more accurate signage and plaquing that tells the full story, and to have either an Indigenous artist complete that work or an Indigenous artist consult on the completion of that work, and to have it done as soon as reasonably possible. So knowing that spring obviously is not possible, we are proposing that we assign a timeline of fall of this year. Ultimately, the artists will dictate what that time frame ends up being. We're unclear what the time frame for the work would be if we were to advance these recommendations. Staff feel that because this is a very polarizing issue, there's a lot of opinions on the matter. This is the best compromise at the current time. All of the Indigenous organizations around the table are in agreement that this is the best path forward, and we feel that this is the middle ground that would help to resolve this particular situation in a manner that is acceptable to the largest number of parties. I do know that Doug has had some conversations prior to today's meeting.
Yes, so in advance of the meeting, Oneway, the Attawood Assembly of Councils, and NCPI were contacted by the Office of the Mayor. And they agree that the 5 recommendations are still relevant, and that there is still a desire to see them advanced.
And I was also able to reach out to the Charlottetown Area Development Corporation, who had some correspondence with the original artist for the installation. They have shared the recommendations with him and indicated that a conversation is taking place, just to ensure that we don't go down this path and then find out that the original artist isn't amenable with the recommendations. He's very much on side with the recommendations that are being made. He would like to complete the work himself, but he is very open to working with a Mi'kmaq artist as a consultant and to offer some guidance to what the final piece could look like. So we do feel that we do have a path forward for this amended resolution that could go forward to council.
Wow, good, great job.
Very good job.
Is there any questions for our staff?
Madam Chair, I have the timelines here as was referred to by Laurel, and we're going back last year. I think some people forget that we were at the first stages of a world pandemic, and everything didn't move as quickly as we wanted it to. And we all know trying to meet with small groups, large groups was totally out of the question, was quite difficult. And then trying to advance any discussion with the academic community at UPEI was also interrupted because there was online teaching, then there was a hybrid of teaching methods at UPEI. So we've gone through a lot of hoops and crossed a lot of hurdles on this issue, but I think what we're looking at now it goes back to the letter that was sent to us on January 28th, 2021.
It was originally sent on October 14th.
Which was from
And
Owen.
then it was reiterated by the Aquinnah Assembly of
And I-
Councils in January.
And I agree, Laurel, as you said, this is a path forward. And as someone said to me, it allows us to make amends for our past errors with our Indigenous people. So it's an opportunity for us to find a sort of a common area that we can work together and hopefully satisfying both Indigenous and non-Indigenous groups. And that's where I see these 5 recommendations. So I would definitely move the resolution to advance this to council at our regular monthly meeting on Monday the 10th.
To amend the original resolution and add
Correct.
these 5 recommendations as well as a new timeline. That's what you'd like to amend it with?
Correct. And I think that there's a spirit of collaboration, cooperation with our First Nations people and organizations that will give us a shared opportunity to, as I say, reconstruct history. Thank you.
The mayor's put in a resolution to amend the original resolution with the 5 recommendations, as well as an extended timeline. You'll second that to move this to council? Okay, so all
And
those,
just to
any
speak on the
discussion?
resolution.
Absolutely,
Madam
yes.
Chair, I just want to thank both Laurel and Doug for a great job, along with the Department, Economic Development, Tourism, Festival Events, to put all this information together, reach out to the artists, reach out to CADC, and your leadership on taking over this committee back last fall to continue to not lose sight of what we're doing here today, but to try to advance a compromise and a path forward to council on Monday night. So I want to thank you and thank the staff.
Thank you. So all those in favor? We're going to move that 2-0. No further discussion? Meeting, someone to motion to move adjournment?
He's moving, I'll second.
We are closed.
Thank you very much.
Stand by.